Welcome to the Physician's Guide to Financial Wellness, the podcast dedicated to helping physicians in Michigan turn their professional success into financial success while enjoying life along the way. And now, here are your hosts, Andrew Mushbaugh and Trent DeBruin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Physician's Guide to Financial Wellness. This is Trent DeBruin, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Mushbaugh. And today we're going to talk about what we feel is the best place to save and invest your money once you've maxed out all of your retirement accounts. When it comes to saving and investing for retirement, we all have a certain amount of tax-advantaged savings space available to us through a combination of employer retirement accounts, such as 403Bs or 401Ks, and personal retirement accounts, such as IRAs and Roth IRAs. However, for many physicians, there comes a point where you're maxing out all of these retirement accounts and still have money left over to save and invest. So it's natural to wonder what's next in terms of where you should then start to allocate money. For us, the answer is a taxable investment account. So Andrew, why don't you kick things off by explaining what a taxable account is and how it fits within the landscape of options?
Wait, before I do that, I thought that next account to save to is your Michigan Football National Championship.
Well, I just assumed that's the first account you save to, even before your tax-advantaged retirement accounts, without an endless stream of cardboard boxes to break down in the garage.
Well, for those of you who have maxed out their Michigan National Championship accounts and their tax-advantaged accounts, a taxable account is the next best option. And we'll start out by clarifying the terminology, since as with many other areas of personal finance, there's no shortage of jargon here. For the purposes of our discussion, we'll refer to it as a taxable account, but you'll also commonly hear it referred to as a brokerage account, a joint account, or an individual account. But it's essentially an account that you can open, similar to a bank account. However, unlike a bank account, where you earn a set percentage of interest based on the amount of money in the account, with a taxable account, you can invest the money in mutual funds, ETFs, stocks, bonds, etc., with the expectation that it'll grow over time. Logistically, it's easy to open and can be done in a few minutes at any number of financial companies or custodians, whether that's Vanguard, Schwab, TD Ameritrade, or one of the many other options. And the reason we talk about this type of account in the context of what to do after you've maxed out all of your retirement accounts is that, at least when it comes to saving and investing for retirement, we advocate using tax-advantaged accounts first. We have an entire episode number 20, where we talk about this in terms of the waterfall of retirement savings by account. But the idea is that everyone has access to certain tax-advantaged retirement accounts, whether retirement accounts available through your employer, such as a 403B, 457B, or 401K, or retirement accounts available to you individually, such as an IRA, Roth IRA, or retirement account for self-employment income like individual 401Ks or SEP IRAs. And because of the built-in tax advantages of these accounts, by saving to them, you're able to stretch your money even further, which is why we prioritize saving to them first when it comes to retirement. However, as Trent alluded to, these tax-advantaged retirement accounts have a limit in terms of how much you're allowed to contribute, so it's common to be in a situation where you're fully taking advantage of them and still have money to save and invest, which is where a taxable account comes into play.
Yeah, and before walking through the many benefits of a taxable account and why we view it as a great option, we thought we would start by covering the drawbacks. And really the biggest one is taxes. So unlike a pre-tax retirement account where you receive a tax deduction when you contribute money and the money then grows tax deferred over time, or a Roth retirement account where you don't receive a tax deduction on the front end, but once the money is in the account, it grows tax-free and you never pay taxes on it again, with a taxable account, as the name implies, you don't have the same tax benefits. Starting with contributions, when you contribute money to a taxable account, you do so on an after-tax basis, so you don't receive a tax deduction for your contributions. Then once the money is in the account and invested, you pay taxes on it over time. There are a couple components to this, but one of them is the annual taxes you pay. When you own investments, they pay you money each year, whether that's dividends for stock market investments or interest for bond investments. And this is money that's paid to you regardless of what the price of the investment is doing. And unfortunately, it's considered income, so you have to pay taxes on it. Now, there are a couple nuances to mention. For example, certain dividends are considered qualified if you held the investment for a specified minimum time period. And if this is the case, they're taxed at long-term capital gains tax rates, which are lower than ordinary income tax rates. Also, certain types of interest, such as the interest paid on municipal bonds, is tax-free. However, broadly speaking, each year you'll have to pay taxes on the dividends and interest your investments pay you in a taxable account. Now, the other type of taxes you pay in this account are taxes on gains when you sell an investment. So let's say you bought an investment at $100 and later sold it at $120. In this case, you would have a gain of $20 that you would have to pay taxes on. If you held the investment for less than a year, this gain would be taxed at the ordinary income rates, which are higher. While if you held the investment for more than a year, the gain would be taxed at long-term capital gains tax rates, which are lower. So that may have been a bit more into the weeds than you wanted, but the punchline is that with a taxable investment account, the tax treatment is less favorable than it is for a tax-advantaged retirement account, and therefore, everything else equal, money invested in a taxable account won't grow as much over time as it would if you invested that money the same way in a tax-advantaged account. So really, the tax treatment is the biggest downside of a taxable account, but even with the less favorable taxation, there are still a ton of things to like about it, especially compared to the alternatives for investing your money. So Andrew, why don't you dive into some of those?
Sure. And one of the first positives sounds pretty basic, but it's that it provides you the opportunity to earn a higher return on your money. As I mentioned a little earlier, if you think about a taxable account compared to just keeping your money in the bank, if you keep it in the bank, it sits in cash and simply earns whatever interest rate the bank pays you. Often, even with interest rates having risen significantly over the past year, this interest rate is minimal. Sure, you can do things like hold it in a high-yield savings account or buy CDs through the bank to earn a higher interest rate, but within the context of trying to grow your money to keep up with inflation over time, leaving your money in a bank account won't be enough. With a taxable account, on the other hand, the situation is much different. You aren't limited to keeping the money in cash and can instead invest it with the potential and expectation to earn a higher rate of return over time. Having said that, as we've mentioned in prior episodes, there's no guarantee that future investment returns will be similar to past ones, but for the context of the stock market, it has historically provided an average annual return of around 10%, while the bond market has provided a return in the range of 3 to 5%, whereas money sitting in cash has historically only provided a return of around 2 to 3%. So as you can see, over time, you'll expect to earn more than cash by investing in other alternatives like stocks and bonds. On top of the higher expected return, you also have to keep in mind that inflation has historically averaged around 2 to 3% per year. In other words, every year the price of life, for lack of a better word, gets more expensive at the pace of 2 to 3%. So cash sitting in the bank, even at a 2 to 3% interest rate, has earned minimal, if any, return in quote-unquote real terms and has barely managed to maintain its purchasing power and keep up with the rising cost of living over time. And when it comes to investing, really for any goal, but especially for retirement, your aim is to grow your money and purchasing power in real terms over time. And a taxable investment account provides you the opportunity to do just that. And just like an infomercial, I feel like I need to add in but wait, there's more.
Hey, who wouldn't love an infomercial about taxable investment accounts? Well, continuing along with the infomercial and along similar lines of having the potential to earn a higher return on your money, another great benefit of a taxable account is the flexibility it provides with investments. With retirement accounts available through your employer, such as 403bs, 457bs, 401ks, etc., you're typically limited with your investment options. There's usually a set list of available investment funds, and you have to choose from that list when deciding how to invest your money. With the taxable account, on the other hand, you have complete flexibility. You aren't limited to certain fund options and can choose from the entire universe of mutual funds and ETFs. You also have the ability to buy individual stocks or bonds if you want to, which isn't possible through an employer retirement account unless there's a brokerage link option. The reason this flexibility is so valuable is that employer retirement accounts can be hit or miss with their investment options. For some employers, there's a strong list of attractive funds to choose from, with options that are low cost, diversified, etc. However, for other employers, there simply aren't great options, whether that's because there aren't funds that allow you to achieve your desired investment allocation and diversification, there are only higher cost actively managed funds, or some other reason. Which funds you invest in can make a huge difference in terms of your long-term investment return and investment outcome, so it's nice to have complete flexibility on this front and be able to choose the investments you want to and not the ones that you have to.
Yeah, and another area where a taxable account has more flexibility than tax-advantaged retirement accounts is when it comes to adding and withdrawing money. For tax-advantaged accounts like 403bs, 401ks, or Roth IRAs, the IRS sets a limit in terms of how much you're allowed to contribute each year. For example, for 2023, you can contribute up to $22,500 to a 403b or 401k if you're under 50, or $30,000 if you're 50 or older. And for a Roth or traditional IRA, you can contribute $6,500 if you're under 50 or $7,500 if you're 50 or older. So because of the tax benefits, we prioritize saving to tax-advantaged accounts first, but there's a limit to how much of that tax-advantaged space you're able to capitalize on. With a taxable account, on the other hand, there are no limits. You can contribute as much as you want each year with no restrictions or annual caps. Also, unlike a 403b or 401k, where contributions have to be made from your paychecks, with a taxable account, you can make a lump sum contribution of any amount at any time. So there's flexibility with contributing money to a taxable account, but going the other direction, there's also flexibility when it comes to withdrawing money from a taxable account. With most tax advantage retirement accounts, the government provides tax benefits with the expectation that the accounts will be used to fund retirement. And because of that, there are restrictions or penalties if you withdraw money before a certain age. For example, with a 403b, 401k, or IRA, if you withdraw money prior to age 59 and a half, you're required to pay a 10% early distribution penalty. There are certain exceptions, including things like disability, financial hardship, and qualifying education expenses. However, this is the general rule. Also, one notable account exception, especially for physicians in our local area, is a 457b plan, which does not have the 10% penalty for pre-59 and a half withdrawals, so long as you're no longer working for the employer. But broadly speaking, the vast majority of tax advantage retirement accounts assess a penalty for withdrawals prior to age 59 and a half. Whereas with a taxable account, there are no penalties and you're free to withdraw money at any time without restriction. And logistically, when you withdraw money from your account, it needs to be in cash, which means you have to sell investments to raise the cash. So the only caveat with a taxable account is that you'll owe taxes on the sale of any investments with a gain, aka if the investment was worth more when you sold it than what you initially paid for it. In other words, if you bought an investment for $10,000 and sold it for $15,000, you'd have to pay taxes on the $5,000 gain or appreciation of your investment. The next part to understand is how the timing of when you sell an investment impacts the tax treatment of any gains, which results in either long-term or short-term capital gains. If you held an investment for more than 1 year before selling it, the taxable gain will be at the more preferential long-term capital gains tax rate, whereas if you held an investment for less than 1 year, you'll be taxed at short-term capital gains rate, which is the same as your ordinary income tax rate. I know there's a little more tax jargon I just quickly went through there, but the main takeaway is that you'd ideally want to hold an investment for more than a year before selling it to capitalize on the lower long-term capital gains tax rate. So the flexibility in terms of withdrawing money is why we really like using the taxable account as a quote-unquote catch-all bucket. Most people have certain financial goals, whether retirement, college for the kids, a down payment for a future home, but it can sometimes be tough to know the exact details around timing and ultimate cost of the goal, especially earlier on in the process of saving for them. In these scenarios, a taxable account fits well because you have the ability to earmark it for any potential future uses and tap it at any time without having to worry about penalties or restrictions, apart from potentially paying taxes on investments that you sell.
Yeah, that's a great segue to the next point we want to make, which, funny enough, is about the tax benefits of the account. We talked earlier about the tax treatment and how a taxable account doesn't have the same tax benefits as tax-advantaged retirement accounts, which is true. However, the account still has some very attractive tax aspects to it, and the first is the treatment of long-term capital gains and qualified dividends. With a regular pre-tax account, like a pre-tax 403b or 401k, you receive that tax deduction for your contributions, but once the money is in the account, it grows over time, and when you eventually withdraw it, you pay taxes on any growth at ordinary income tax rates, which are higher, since each dollar you withdraw from this type of retirement account is taxed as ordinary income. With a taxable account, on the other hand, while you don't receive a tax deduction for contributions, you have the potential to pay taxes on the growth, if the investment is held for more than a year, and certain dividends at those long-term capital gains tax rates that Andrew just discussed, which are lower than ordinary income rates. To illustrate this, for 2023, if you're a married couple with taxable income of $400,000, your marginal tax rate for ordinary income is 32%. On the other hand, long-term capital gains and qualified dividends for that same household would only be taxed at a 15% rate. So the potential to benefit from long-term capital gains tax treatment is one positive of a taxable account, but another positive is the ability to do tax loss harvesting. We've discussed this in prior episodes, but as a quick summary, tax loss harvesting is a strategy where if you have a taxable account and have an investment in the account that's worth less than what you paid for it, you can sell the investment and immediately reinvest the money in a similar investment. Doing this allows you to capture that temporary loss and deduct it for tax purposes while remaining invested in the market. In terms of the tax deduction, you can then use the loss to offset future capital gains or deduct up to $3,000 of losses per year from your taxes while carrying forward any unused losses to future years until they're all eventually used up. With a tax-advantaged retirement account, on the other hand, you aren't able to deduct losses for taxes, so you aren't able to implement this strategy in a 403b or 401k, for example. So the ability to do tax loss harvesting is a nice aspect of a taxable account that allows you to bank lemonade from lemons during periods when the market is down, like it was last year in 2022. Lastly, one additional tax benefit of a taxable account for people who are charitably inclined is the ability to donate appreciated investments. So if you have investments in your taxable account that are worth more than what you paid for them, and therefore have an unrealized gain, and the charity you want to support is able to receive investments, you can donate those investments directly from your taxable account to the charity. Doing this allows you to receive credit for tax purposes for a charitable gift equal to the full value of the investments. You avoid having to pay taxes on the underlying gains, and once the charity receives the investments, it can immediately sell them and also avoid paying taxes on the underlying gains due to its favorable tax status. So really, it's a win-win all around. With a tax-advantaged retirement account, there's also potential for favorable charitable giving, but that doesn't kick in until age 70 and a half, when you become eligible to make qualified charitable distributions, or QCDs, by donating money directly from a pre-tax IRA to a charity up to $100,000 a year, thereby avoiding having to pay taxes on the money. So as you can see, while a taxable account doesn't have the same tax treatment as tax-advantaged retirement accounts, there's still a lot to appreciate when it comes to the tax benefits.
Yeah, and the different tax treatment and tax benefits of a taxable account becomes especially helpful when creating a tax-efficient retirement income or withdrawal plan. If you're like most people, there tends to be a gap in between when they retire and when they start collecting Social Security, or at least eventually required to start taking money out of their pre-tax retirement accounts for required minimum distributions, which on the note of required minimum distributions, the starting date has changed several times over the past few years. It used to be 70 and a half, was increased to age 72, and most recently, with the passage of the Secure Act 2.0, the age has increased to 73, at least for anyone who turned 72 after December 31st, 2022. And the age is set to increase even further in the future. See, nothing to be confused by here, right? But because of this timing dynamic between retirement and Social Security, or RMDs, there's often a period where, assuming you have the right mix of retirement accounts, you have a significant amount of flexibility in determining what will make up your income, or quote-unquote retirement paycheck each year. For example, when looking at your overall retirement savings, you might have a combination of pre-tax accounts, Roth accounts, and taxable accounts. If this is the case, you have the ability to decide how much to take from each account to fund your living expenses. So knowing that withdrawals from each account are treated differently for tax purposes, you can be strategic about how you withdraw from the different accounts in order to minimize your lifetime taxes. A taxable account provides a lot of flexibility in this regard. The reason why goes back to the tax benefits, where you'll only pay taxes on the gains related to any investments you sell. On top of that, for most retirees, the majority of those gains will likely be long-term gains, which means you'll pay more favorable long-term capital gains taxes. For example, let's say you need $100,000 to fund your lifestyle. Well, you may be to sell an investment to raise the $100,000 and only have $10,000 of taxable gains as a result. Well, if that was the case, and assuming this was the only income you had in the calendar year, you would pay $0 of taxes. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but the idea is that by using a taxable account to fund the early years of retirement, you'll be able to meet your living expenses with relatively minimal amounts of taxable income, thus opening the door for other proactive tax planning strategies, like potentially qualifying you for a healthcare subsidy prior to Medicare at age 65, or capitalizing on Roth IRA conversions. We won't dive into the weeds on the specific strategies in this episode, but Roth IRA conversions are one of the most valuable strategies available to you when it comes to tax planning and retirement, which is why we have an entire episode number 45, dedicated to them. So feel free to check it out if you'd like to hear a more detailed discussion. So the main punchline or main takeaway here is that a taxable investment account provides significant options and opportunity when it comes to financial planning, tax planning, and creating your retirement paycheck.
All right, now bringing things home, the last positive of taxable account we want to touch on has to do with the end of life and the benefits around legacy planning. Stepping back a bit, when it comes to legacy planning, many people end up in a situation where they have more than enough money to fund their retirement lifestyle and end up having money left over at the end of life to pass on to heirs. The most common retirement account people pass along as part of their legacy is a pre-tax IRA. As we've discussed, you're required to pay ordinary income taxes on each dollar you withdraw from a pre-tax IRA, and a few years ago, prior to the Secure Act, the rules regarding distributions were much more favorable to people inheriting IRAs. Back then, if you inherited an IRA, you had the ability to stretch distributions from the IRA over your lifetime. The government wants you to withdraw the money from an IRA at some point so it can collect the taxes on the money, but under the old rules, you as a beneficiary had the ability to smooth those IRA withdrawals over many more years, thereby smoothing the impact of paying those taxes. However, with the passage of the Secure Act in 2019, the rules changed materially, and under the new rules, most non-spouse beneficiaries who inherit an IRA are now required to withdraw all the money from the IRA account within a period of 10 years. So obviously this is much more restrictive and requires you to pay the tax burden on an inherited IRA over a much shorter period of time. With a taxable account, on the other hand, the situation is different and more favorable for a couple different reasons. First, there are no required withdrawals for a taxable account. If you inherit one, you have complete flexibility around what to do with the money. You could keep it invested, withdraw everything at once, withdraw it gradually over time, etc. The other big benefit in a legacy planning context is that when you pass away and your taxable account passes to your beneficiary, the new account receives what's called a step-up in cost basis. This is a little technical, but what a step-up in basis means is that the value of the account for calculating gains or losses for tax purposes is increased to the actual value of the account at the time of death. So why is that important? Well, imagine you have a taxable account that you opened many decades ago, and through the passage of time, the investments in the account have grown significantly and are now worth much more than what you originally paid for them. In this situation, you would have a significant amount of unrealized gains in the account for which you would have to pay taxes if you sold the investments. However, if you pass away and leave the account to your son or daughter, for example, the cost basis of your investments, or the cost for calculating gains or losses, is reset to the current value of the investments, and therefore those gains disappear. With that in mind, whoever inherits the account could sell the investments immediately to have the money in their pocket, while at the same time not have to pay taxes on any gains. So clearly this can end up saving a huge amount of money in taxes avoided. Now we know different people feel differently about legacy and passing on wealth to their heirs, but as you can see, a taxable account has significant benefits in this regard, and those benefits have grown in importance since the Secure Act was passed. Well, that covers everything we wanted to discuss with the taxable account. As we've outlined, there are many benefits and things to like about it, and it's a key account we use when working with our clients. As mentioned earlier, with retirement savings, we focus on maxing out contributions to tax-advantaged accounts first, but after doing that, we like to use the taxable account as a catch-all account, not only for retirement savings, but also for other potential goals, whether that's college savings, the down payment for a retirement home or dream home, etc. The account has a ton of flexibility, and because of that, it provides a lot of optionality in the future, especially when it comes to tax planning and retirement. To give a recap of the key benefits of a taxable account, number one, it gives you the opportunity to earn a higher return on your money compared to keeping it in the bank. This allows your money to grow more over time. Number two, it provides complete flexibility with investments, compared to most employer retirement plans where you have to choose from a set list of investment options. Number three, it's flexible when it comes to adding and withdrawing money, compared to tax-advantaged retirement accounts that have annual limits when contributing money, then restrictions when withdrawing, including potential penalties if you withdraw prior to age 59.5, and requirements to start withdrawing at a certain age. Number four, while it doesn't have the same tax benefits as tax-advantaged retirement accounts, it does have many positives with taxes, including the ability to pay taxes at more favorable long-term capital gains rates, the potential to do tax loss harvesting, and the ability to donate appreciated investments to charities. Number five, it provides excellent flexibility for managing income in retirement, particularly the ability to implement valuable tax planning strategies like Roth IRA conversions. And lastly, number six, it has some nice features that help with legacy planning, including no required distributions for beneficiaries and the potential for a step-up in cost basis. Well, thank you as always for joining us for another episode of the show. You can find the show notes at the podcast page of our website, mdwmllc.com/podcast. And if you have thoughts to share or questions you'd like to have answered, we'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to email us at info@mdwmllc.com. Take care, everyone, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Want even more ideas, tools, and resources on how to make smart financial decisions? Check out the resources section of MD Wealth Management's website at mdwmllc.com. where you'll find additional knowledge and insight from Michigan physicians, including a blog, ebook, and one-page guides. While there, you can also schedule a 15-minute conversation with Andrew and Trent to learn more about what it means to work with the firm and how they serve physicians. If you've enjoyed the content, please leave a review on iTunes and share with your friends and colleagues. Thanks so much for listening. Andrew Mushbaugh and Trent DeBruin are certified financial planners, principals, and co-founders of MD Wealth Management, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Michigan. All opinions shared in the show are for general information and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future returns. Please consult with your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor before making any decisions.